Welcome, friends, to Reality Test. What is reality testing, you may ask? Well, it's something we all do every day, maybe with our loved ones over dinner, with coworkers at the water cooler, etc., when we check our subjective or personal emotions, thoughts, and so forth against objective or sort of more agreed upon fact-based reality. Although, because Dr. Ray and I, Dr. Kay, are social constructionists, we don't actually believe there's one true objective reality, but rather our own personal versions of it constructed in the context of relationships. But you get the idea. So here in Reality Test, we're going to be testing the castmate realities and the producer antics of our favorite reality TV shows against what we know as licensed psychologists about the reality out here, off of our TVs. We hope you'll join us as we attempt to reality test. Listen, y'all, we have a lengthy version of our disclaimer in the show description text, also in our old episodes, but we do ethically need to at least include part of it at the start of each episode. So here's our briefest version of the disclaimer. If you've heard it before, you can skip ahead 30 seconds, or for the old episodes, 2 minutes. So although we're licensed psychologists, psychotherapists, supervisors in the context of our professional roles, we are not acting as therapists in the context of this pod, neither for you nor for the reality castmates we discuss. We will give our opinions as our whole human selves, albeit supported by our psychological knowledge, and we will talk about diagnoses rather than assigning them, as we cannot ethically assign diagnoses without formal psych assessment. But both the opinions and diagnoses we discuss might easily be erroneous, as we don't personally know the folks in reality TV shows. That's it. Thanks, y'all. Now check out our campy theme song.
Are you feeling stressed? Your head's all messed? Well, let's forget all the rest. Fuck it, we're blessed. Cause it's time to talk reality test. Come with us. Let's reality test. Welcome to Reality Test. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Dr. Kay. Feel free to check in and take a seat wherever you like. We're doing an award show, baby. It's been way too long. We're coming back. We're coming back strong. We got some awards to share. And we're doing that as our episode this week. So we're going to put all of our energy into it. It's going to be 2 episodes worth of our energy into our award show.
Totally. And you know what? To be honest, it's been a rough week. So we thought that you all needed some joy, some love, some compassion. Yeah. And we're hoping that these awards can give you a little escape. If you, reprieve. Like us, are having a bit of a rough go at it this week in this post-apocalyptic dystopian hell that I feel like I'm in personally.
That's a total nightmare land with hell goblins. We are just in the deep of the deep here. And I think, if people are politically on a different plane, they wouldn't be listening to this podcast. So we are quite liberal, as you may have already guessed if you've been listening to our podcast. Of course, conservative folks are totally welcome. And also, you might find our conversation about the election to just be different, and then you're welcome to just skip ahead. But I think we're going to spend our check-in talking about the election a little bit and sharing our thoughts. And because I think it's quite painful right now for many people. Really, just like marginalized groups to the max, and plenty of people with privilege too, which is really fucked up. So we'll do that for a check-in, and then we'll do our 8 awards, and then we'll just see you next week after that, which we're excited because we have something very exciting coming up. It'll be it'll be a few weeks from now, but we have something very exciting that we want to share with you all. So that is awesome. And stay tuned with us here for the next few weeks to find that out. And with that in mind, what are you feeling like, Dr. Ray, in terms of the election and sort of thoughts and on your heart and mind and feelings, and how are you doing?
I am fucking bummed. That was it. It was sad. I think there was this part of me that thought that maybe Kamala would win. Maybe I was in denial, but it just felt like maybe it wasn't going to go this way. There is an elitist part of my brain that thought this, as a country, I think we are kind of in a place where we would never put this man back in the White House because he, to me, sounds pretty unhinged and pretty unwell. I was mistaken. He won the popular vote, which, there's been a lot of post-election takes and people saying, I told you so, and seeming smug. And fine, whatever. That feels a little like hindsight bias to me. I think to me, it's sad. Like I'm sitting with a lot of sadness because if we look at what actually happened, Trump won the popular vote and very, very fairly won the election. What that means is that a person who is pretty unhinged, has committed sexual assault, has said awful things about all sorts of groups, won over a very competent Black woman who was very qualified for the job. And that is
much more qualified than a reality TV businessman.
Yes, much, much more qualified. And that's sad. That's sad to know that that's where we're at as a country. It's just a bummer. It feels scary. I don't know what's going to happen. I think I have relative privilege in that I think I will probably be okay over the next 4 years. But I worry about trans folks. I worry about immigrants. I worry about undocumented people. There are just a lot of people I'm thinking about. And people
folks
of color.
In gay marriages.
Totally. Just, yes, so many groups that I think are at very, very high risk. And that makes me very sad. And so I think that's what I'm sitting with this week.
Totally. Yeah, I agree with all of that. And it's honestly tragic. It's like some of the saddest reality stuff. Like I tried not to get my hopes up like I did with the Hillary election, because I did remember that with that, we have a sexist fucking country. It is so sexist and so racist. And so if we couldn't elect Hillary due to sexism, then I was imagining that having both sexism and racism be at play in this case was not going to be good. I was hoping, though, that Black Lives Matter movement and some of the progress we've made in the last decade or so would have helped. So that was so heartbreaking that we have not moved the needle on that. It was heartbreaking that many people of color voted for Trump, that they, saw him as a champion for them. It says a lot about the liberal sort of folks having a hard time reaching out to middle class recently. I think it's kind of wild because when I heard Trump making a speech to the folks in Detroit, all he's saying is we're going to fix all of our problems. He's not saying anything they're actually going to do. And so it's just like, of course, if you say we're going to fix all the problems of the country, someone's going to love to hear that. But like, he can't back it up. And no one has ever been able to fix every problem when they're in a presidency. That's literally impossible. Literally impossible. So to say that is a lie, and that's something Kamala would never do. She would never lie like that and say we're going to fix every problem. And the thing that pisses me off too is like every time there's an election, presidents like make a whole lot of claims when they're running for president, and then they don't follow through on them. Obviously, they usually can't follow through on all of them. Trump's not going to get held to that. No one's going to be like, you said you're going to solve all the problems, because it's such a wild fucking claim to begin with. I also feel like there was a small part of me, there were some weird things that happened with that election where it reminded me that because they so often, both with the last election and then leading up to this election, the conservative, like Trump specifically, had said so many times, the election's rigged, they're cheating, the election's rigged, that it meant that every liberal on the planet had to say, no, I trust the electoral process, I trust the election, I trust this, we're definitely doing it right, everybody's great, this is wonderful. So with that history, now there's no way that any of us could say Trump rigged the election, because we've all been saying, no, we trust it. And obviously, I'm not saying he did rig it, but I do think that's interesting. Like, that would be smart. And he has Elon Musk, who's like the person to rig an election. He has like complete internet control. Like, so I just think that honestly, if that is part of what happened, we will never be able to say that. We'll never find that out. And there's just like total heartbreak there for me, because I do think, even though I was less hopeful than with Hillary, I did have a lot of hope, and I did feel like there was a lot of movement. Especially, I was grateful to the women that understood it this time that didn't the last time. I was disappointed about people of color. I mean, so the other thing I was thinking about is for the Latin vote, like he's coming out and saying Mexican folks are murderers, rapists, saying that illegal immigrants are from Mexico. So I could see if you're a Latin person, you might be better off in terms of safety saying you're a Trump supporter, because if you don't, people could be like, well, you just don't like him saying that because you're one of them or whatever. And so it might be like a way of being like, I'm not one of them, I like Trump, like, and so I was sort of imagining that incentive as well. But yeah, I don't know. These are just some of the thoughts I'm having. It's the worst. Like, it reminds me of nuclear war, frankly, which is a terrible thing to say, but actually not, because it's very related and that's upsetting. But that we don't really think about the fact that nuclear war could happen any day for any reason. We put our heads down to get through the day. We have to. We physically have to not think about that to be able to survive. And that's basically what we're going to do with Trump. Like, we're going to have to dissociate and like not think about it to be able to get through the next 4 years, just like we did the first time. The real lack of safety, the fact that Roe versus Wade was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, that's a reality that is so hard to even grasp, even though we're like living with that every day and people are dying. Women are dying from that. That's how regressive we were the first time. Like, we already have Republicans in so much power with just the Supreme Court. You know, so it's like, what the fuck? Like, we're so already so fucked. And with him having so much power and Republicans having so much power, and there are plenty of Republicans who don't actually want him to be in power, like Republicans who are also politicians who don't actually want him to be in power, but that's their job, right? And they have to like sort of kiss the ring. And it's just, I fucking hate it. It's so upsetting. So I do think there are certain things we can do to take care of ourselves at times like this. Some is like reconnecting with community that are like-minded. Listening to people who are talking about what they're doing as well, like, for example, podcasts or TV. And some of it is disconnecting, frankly. Some of it is like in at least bursts of time, disconnecting from the news, disconnecting from thinking about what happened and letting yourself sort of get an escape and then coming back and touching base. Because if you completely avoid your emotions on it, then that will come out sideways. Substance use, anger, angry outbursts. I think actually being angry makes total sense, and getting angry is good for you. But also you might be angry about something completely minor because you're not facing the anger you might have about the election. So embracing our emotions, letting them out, finding ways to cope, disconnecting sometimes, having community. Those are some basic things I would say have been helping me and it would help.
Very well said. Yeah. I think the community and the relationships piece, which is something that we talk about, Dr. Kay, and you speak about so lovely in other spaces, is huge here.
Totally. Relationships are the thing of life. They're the juice of life. They're the thing that give us the weird juice of life. I've never heard that expression, but it's like, you get what I mean by it. It's
I'm
the
picking
elixir.
up what you're putting down. Yes.
It's the life-giving elixir.
Zest. Yes.
So we must. And I think it's both what gives us happiness in general, but also it's literally healing at times like this. Shame can't survive connection is something that Brene Brown says a lot. I think it's a great point as well. Similarly, our kind of like depression when in community and expressing it with each other has a lot less of a hold on us. And I think it's really key. So, yeah. I really appreciate being able to talk about it with you. For example, Dr. Ray, both off and on the recording. It just is like so important. And I just really appreciate you and the healing nature of our friendship. So thank you so much.
Likewise, my love. It's nice to be able to talk with you in this space because it feels very isolating, I think, to be processing this election right now. But it's important to remember that there are a lot of us who are feeling very sad.
Yeah, absolutely. I was bawling as just during the election still, like it wasn't even done. It just was like, oh my God, Pennsylvania is going, isn't it? And just like bawling. It's just too much. It's too much. I can't. I like couldn't watch his speech. I just turned it off at that point when he was going to have his speech. Oh, too much.
So
it's just
sad.
That's the other thing that's weird, right? Like last time it took a while. Last time he even won, it took a little bit longer, So it just feels weird. It feels weird to me. Anyway, that's totally me like hoping it was rigged, but who cares if it's rigged? Because it's not going to matter. No one's going to fucking figure that out and come after him for it. Oh,
no.
Right? Oh, I've just remembered the thing I told you off mic that I thought I would bring up, which is good news, which is that somebody involved with the trials that he got indicted for, came on to Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen and said that they won't be just dropping the charges, that they're still going forward with it, and that they can give him a sentence of in 4 years, you will go to prison. So that is really good news. Yes. It's not completely wiped.
So
just because he becomes president. That's good. Justice. Thank you, justice system.
Get your ass in jail, motherfucker.
That's good. It's getting anger out. I love it.
Yes.
Good modeling.
Flat anger, really. Yes. My delivery was a bit flat, but the anger is real. Like, I really don't like that man very strongly. Yeah. Might even hate him. And I try not to hate anyone, but I'm right there with him.
The amount of power he has and therefore the modeling he does, like as soon as he became president, white supremacists everywhere felt so emboldened to go on Twitter. I saw that one person had said, women back in the kitchen, trans back in the closet, Another person said, your body, my choice. I mean, it's just like really
I
fucked
saw
up
that
dark, right? So I think that kind of emboldening says so much about why he is such a dangerous person to be in power when we have tried to move forward towards basic equal rights. Like the Roe versus Wade is such a basic human rights, civil rights law. Like what? How could we have undone that? That's so basic and so necessary. Mm-hmm. But then there's so many other ones that we were starting to move towards that are now totally off the table, at least for 4 years.
Yeah.
Wow. It's just, so there's reason to hate. I really do understand that feeling. Just abuse of power and total regression for our country.
And I will say, like, my family and I, during Trump's last term, it was hard for me because I, like many people in this country, were like mixed politically. I am very liberal. They are conservative, and they voted for Trump. And I just think our relationships got so much better over the last 4 years. And it's sad that, like, I'm having trouble right now, like, remembering the good things about my family, of which there are many, but it feels hard to think, God, you just voted to like fuck with a lot of people's rights.
Including your own
still love,
daughter.
and including me. And it's like, and that hurts and that's sad. And they're still my family and I love them, but does it strain our relationships? Absolutely.
Totally.
And that sucks.
Oh, that's so
I think I really think he brings out the worst impulses in people, which is sad.
Exactly. And I do think there's plenty of people, probably like your family, that misunderstand the amount of damage that just the fact that he says racist, sexist things does, and so like that's hard to watch, that there's sort of like that level of ignorance, or that he's able to have that sort of wool over people's eyes, if you will. Is so dark, and it's super painful when it's someone close to you that is not seeing it. But my family luckily is liberal, so I didn't have that specific scenario, but my ex-husband was more conservative and definitely was actually a big part of why we divorced. So there was an article that came out that said 90% of young people will not date across the aisle. And that makes total sense. It's totally different now. That's not something I'm going to, as a bi plus person, I'm not going to even entertain that. That's off the table. So it's tough. It's like, you can't do that with your family. You can't divorce your family,
No.
So
got to figure that shit out.
You got to sit with it. It's just so painful.
Yeah. And take some space, which is what I'm doing. My dad called me 2 nights ago, and I could see him gloating and not gloating in the conversation. I was like, that's how this is going to go. And I'm not here for it. So I didn't answer. I'll talk to them in a few weeks, and I think I will say I'm not this time around, because I think before we would debate, and I'm just I'm not doing it again. And I know people say like, oh, cross view families, what a great opportunity to like learn and engage and have real conversation. Hasn't been my experience with my family. I think anything I say, they go the opposite. And so I think for me personally, other people might feel differently. I'm just setting a real hard boundary of I'm not doing this. Just nope.
Absolutely. And that's such good self-care. There is actually an article that said that if you come out, like if you give a certain amount, up to a certain point of saying an opposite argument, will actually make it stronger for them. They will actually get stronger in their counter views to you. So I think that's absolutely smart for both reasons, for self-care and because it won't help. It'll hurt it more.
No. And I think they get excited because they don't talk to a lot of liberal people. So I think they get pumped and they want to share all their views and all their, and I'm just like, I don't want to be the target for all of your best points because I find them highly offensive and this isn't fun. So
and you're outnumbered.
Yep, absolutely. It's not a good day, but we'll figure it out. We'll get through it. I love my family and this is hard. Both are true for me.
That's so important. Thank you so much for sharing, because I really do, like you said, there's so many people. Like I remember teaching a diversity course the first time Trump went into office, and there was like all of my students basically were like, what do we do? How do we talk to our families? Because so many of them were going to a liberal degree. Getting a doctorate in clinical psych is often liberal. Of course, there's some conservative folks, but it's hard to be conservative when so much of the liberal side is about human rights, and that's what we're teaching and espousing our students. So then a lot of students that came into our school were coming out of families that were not feeling that way, because they felt unheard and they sort of wanted to be in a more liberal space. So that's really common, at least for our community. But there's, I'm sure, beyond it, way, way too many people who are just feeling totally alone in their own homes. So, so tough.
Yeah. We're sending love to all of you as well.
Yeah. To all marginalized people, like coming into that day with hope and dreams that just got completely squandered. Just heartbreaking. Yeah, really. I just we are feeling for you, feeling for ourselves, feeling for our country, feeling for our future, and hope that you all can take care of yourselves as much as possible.
Yeah.
Up your self-care.
Sending you lots of love.
Yes. Love and hugs. And hope for setting strong boundaries.
Yes. Boundaries are self-care in all ways. They don't always feel good in the moment. It's kind of awkward, but it's good. It's good for one. So do your boundaries.
Yes. Practice your boundaries. Get better at it without feeling like you're being rude. Because fuck that. Women are expected to be so nice and like put the relationship first. We often do care about relationships. You know, I care a lot about them. But a big part of keeping relationships healthy is setting boundaries so that they don't become, toxic or distressing. We don't want, it's not about all relationships being important. It's about the ones that give you zest and like desire for more relationships. Growth fostering relationships is what we're promoting. So don't feel bad about being like, fuck off. There's the people that are not doing that for you.
Right. Exactly. Cutting people off is also a valid way to go in lots of situations.
Yes, abuse and so forth, definitely cutting off. And as you said, like having, about like a barrier for now, also in short term with folks that are not abusive, but just are completely different from you politically to the extent that it's distressing and it's affecting your ability to stay in the sort of dissociated zone that we were talking about that might be necessary for sometimes during this when it's really traumatic. Like dissociation happens for a reason. It helps people get through trauma. And this is a trauma. This is a community trauma that we're going through. So some dissociation can actually be important, but with awareness that can't be the whole enchilada, that you also will need some time to think and feel, go to therapy or feel with your friends that feel similarly.
Absolutely. Yes. Have spaces to discuss.
Exactly. I also have to say, we're doing that exact thing right here. We talked about our feelings. We let it out. We feel like fucking shit. And now we're going to have some dissociative escapism by talking about our awards. I love that.
Yay.
Thank you all for joining us in this.
I'm so excited.
Let's fucking do it. So let's get right into it, baby. What are your shows today that you are including for your awards?
Quite a few. You're going to be proud of me. I've got a few shows. I've got Selling Sunset. I've got Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So we may be able to discuss the reunion because I've been keeping up now. They kind of hooked me.
Oh my God, so good, right? Such a good season.
Yes. Traitors season 1. What else do I got? What else do I have? A little bit of Summer House, but so 4. I have 4 shows.
I love it.
Thank you very much.
I'm doing sign language clapping so that it doesn't disrupt our microphone, but I'm very excited for you.
I love that.
Great work.
But what about you? Who do you have today?
Okay, so I'm going to be covering also Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, which is great. We can combine on that. Also Love is Blind 7, just because there are some awards that came up out of that, but we haven't done awards in a while. And then Golden Bachelorette and Real Housewives of New York City. A little bit of touch of the New Yorkers. So
the New Yorkers.
We're going to hit some cool variety here. I'm super stoked. And why don't you start us off, dear Dr. Ray, with what you're doing for your protest this mess. Also, folks, if you have not been around for our award shows before, all of our awards have test because our podcast is called Reality Test somewhere in their name. So for this one, it's protest this mess. This is the meanest, saddest, drunkest, or most obnoxious moment.
Okay, so this was Selling Sunset. So this was, to give context, something very tricky happened this season where Chelsea in a previous season talked a lot of shit about Brianna, who is one of, I don't know if you've heard about the Nick Cannon having kids with a lot of women thing. Yes. So Brianna is one of those women, and she's also a realtor. And Chelsea was very shaming of Brianna. Yeah, not great. So come to this season, Brianna finds out some information that Chelsea's husband is cheating on her. And from someone else. it seems like this. So she tells her at first, Chelsea's very grateful. It seems like this feminist moment, but then later on, it comes out that this may have been like that she could have done it off camera as opposed to on the show, because this is Chelsea's very personal life. Yep. So it was kind of a breaking the fourth wall sort of thing.
Love that.
And who knows what the truth is. So anyway, very complicated relational dynamics. But so Mary and Jason used to be together. Different thing. Their dog died, and it was so sad. And this dog was like 18 years old, and they were really sweet together. One thing I like about the show, I kind of like their dynamic because they were together and have remained friends and worked together. And they clearly love each other, they weren't the right fit. And that's kind of sweet. But so they had this funeral for their dog, and it was really lovely. And I mean, they were really sad. Like they tattooed the dog's ashes into their skin. Like it was... They're cool. Like obsessed with their dogs. I know, which I understand as a dog owner myself. But anyway, so Brianna, Chelsea, Chriselle, and Emma at this dog funeral start like really loudly kind of fighting with each other. And people got really upset. And by the way, the outfits for this dog funeral were incredible. Like they turned the fuck out for, as you know, like if you've seen this show at all, like they dress to impress at all times. So it was like kind of fun and funny and like also very sweet and serious. It was, but anyway, it was obnoxious the way they were fighting about this situation at this dog funeral. A very serious situation, but probably not the place.
Not the place, because it's also a serious event. Yeah.
It is. Yes. So that is the mess I am protesting this week.
Excellent. And then what are the races? Are they all white, all four of them? Or
so Brianna is white, Emma is white, Chriselle is white, Chelsea is black.
Okay.
And great. From London. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I met Chelsea. I only saw the first few seasons. And the reason I guess they were white is because it is a deeply white show. But I do remember Amanza is not white. But yeah, that is tough. And yeah, I liked Mary and Jason's relationship too. And I felt like Jason, I think what I liked also was that I thought or hoped that Jason was helping Mary's personal career as well, even after they broke up. But there were times where I was like, you could do more. You could help her a little more than that, bro. But yeah, I think it was almost like he didn't want her to get bigger than he was for some reason or something. I didn't like that feeling, but I do also.
I think that's true.
Right? Doesn't it feel like that?
He gets a percentage of each of their incomes, and they do a heck of a lot for him by being very like sexy, charismatic women who sell killer real estate. And he's just kind of this dude. I think he's good at selling real estate, but it does feel kind of weird to me in some ways. I can't put my finger on it. But
I mean, it's like one notch away from sex work, like, right? Like it's like sort of
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, right.
Like
they're sort of like selling them
something.
Out, right? Exactly. Yeah, and he's getting a percentage, and frankly, like they kind of do treat them just like even the show a little bit like just like hot women. Like they're not really. Like, you know, a lot of it's about the drama. They're not like as much promoting, thinking about their intellect or thinking about, you know. So when they had those moments with Mary and her career, I was like, yes, this is the kind of stuff I want to see them doing.
Because Mary is because Mary is a hell of a real estate agent. Like some of these women, I think, are great real estate agents, but also do other things and are like influencers. I think Mary is like, I think she's been in the game as long as Jason, and she's really good at it.
Yeah, she's badass. I love that. I also frankly felt like Christine took her job seriously too, but I also get that she's gone. I loved her outfits as well. They were super outlandish.
Fabulous.
Yes.
I love all of their clothes. It's really fun. That part is really fun to me.
And the houses are too. The houses and the clothes.
Oh my God.
Fun. Yeah.
Incredible stuff.
So true. Oh, thank you so much. I love hearing a little bit more about it. It gives me my fill without having to watch the show. So I love that.
Yay.
For my protest this mess, I went Golden Bachelor and I went Bachelorette. I went, Chalk is not for me. And I know you know this. I've said this from day one. Chalk is not the fucking guy for me at all. He is so fucking controlling. And so do you mind, so you're not caught up on it. Do you mind if I say a little bit? It's not even about really the episode so much as about who's still there.
That's okay. I mean, I saw the preview kind of reel that spoiled it, but I mean, I'm going to be caught up by next week anyway. So yes, awesome. I would love to hear.
Awesome. So really the only thing that's a little bit spoily is that Chalk is still there. And I think personally, I think personally he wins. Like I've thought that since the Disney date, honestly. And I fucking hate it because she needs someone she keeps saying, I need someone who's fun and exciting and adventurous. I think he put that on for Disney. He even said at Disney, I haven't felt this way in a long time. He's not fun. He's serious. He's controlling. He wants to be in control of her. He's entitled. He's elitist. And she's a powerful woman. So she's used to being in charge too. She literally is a vice principal, right? Or what? Or maybe principal. I don't remember, but she's high up in a school. So she's used to being in power. And I think right now she has the power because she literally has it for the show. So she thinks that will be how he'll be. No, he will not. Once you get out of there, he's going to be the one in full power and he's not going to take it. He's not going to take it from her. I fucking hate it. I wish you could see that part of him. He's so fucking controlling. So that's it for me. I protest him hard. And I think the other thing is, I think Pascal made it as far as he did, wherever he is now, regardless, unrelated. But I feel like he was still in the game for a while because he was sexy with her. He wanted to put his hands on her. You know, they had those, like I was bringing up before, like the stealing kisses. I thought that was so cute. I think that's why she liked him. He made her feel like a woman, you know, like he was making her feel desired, sexy. And he's a little bougie, so that might have been appealing too for this stage of life, right? Go on the boat, go to France, which I love. But he said at one point to her, I don't feel a spark. And like that must have been the hardest thing to hear from him for her, because that was the thing that she had with him, was the sort of sexual chemistry. So that I felt so bad. Yeah, I felt so bad for her. She had a hard time with that statement, which is understandable. So that I also protested that, but I think I use him only as an example to say that's different from Chalk. She doesn't feel like that's like that fun sort of flirty stuff with Chalk. And I hate it. I hate that he's still there. And I hate that I think he'll win. I hate it.
That sucks. Ugh, bummer.
Yeah.
Bummer.
I've been against him the whole season. I hate that he's here. It's crazy. Or it's silly.
Chalk. Well, speaking of people who are upsetting, who is doing the mostest for you? So what is the most cringe or embarrassing moment for you this week?
Okay, so my doing the most test is from Roni, so Real Housewives of New York. It is kind of like testosterone, but I saved testosterone for a male sort of audience, like male folks who I thought were testosteroning. But for doing the mostest, I gave it to Brynn from Real Housewives of New York because of her internalized anti-Black racism, but also her colorism. So
I've heard about this.
Ooh, it's bad.
Oh my God. I haven't watched it all yet. I saw a little bit with Uba, but I don't think I saw the whole thing. Damn.
Yeah. It's only like a couple scenes too, so it won't even ruin it for you. Like it's like, or spoil it. It's very quick, but it is deeply problematic. So Uba is a Black woman who is also, she's Somalian. She is a model, supermodel. And Brynn is a half Black, half white woman who was raised by her white grandmother. And the like access she had to her Black part was by going to parlor shop, what is it? Barber shops. Which is really great that her grandma was doing that. But that means she didn't have a whole lot of access to her Black part for most of her life. She is white presenting. She's definitely somebody whom you would assume is white. She does have Black features in her face, but she's white skinned. And so her colorism is very present in some of her reactions to Uba. So there is a privilege that she needs to acknowledge. There's a lack of privilege, like the marginalization that she faces that's unique is that she doesn't belong in a Black culture either. Like she doesn't feel like she belongs in either of them, and she gets misunderstood as white. And that is a specific type of marginalization, but it is still different from being Black, like from your skin being noticeably Black. So she has some internalized racism associated with her Blackness, but then the colorism part is what really gets me with Uba. So Uba has been getting mad at Brynn because Brynn has been egging her a little bit too. And she actually mimics her sometimes, and it's really upsetting. I don't like that at all. It's like mocking, really. Using an accent, by the way, not good. And it is condescending. So Uba has been getting kind of upset with her. But Uba's funny when she gets upset. Like she purposely says things like, everybody's pigeons. You're all pigeons, you know, it's sort of
oh my
funny.
God, cracked me up.
So fucking funny. So funny. And she is like intentionally doing that. Like, you know, she's like using, she knows that she's being funny, and she's like sort of, you know, like back and forthing it with her friends. So we see Brynn stop Uba at one point, and it was something that was said off camera that Erin also saw, and she said, I actually, even Erin said, I don't think that Bryn should have said that to her. But then Uba brings it up on camera, and then Bryn tells us in a testimonial where she just straight up tells us that, like, no shame around it, no remorse, no understanding of what's wrong with it. So she told Uba, the problem is, I want to stop you from being like this because you could lose Oliver, her boyfriend from Connecticut, if you're seen as an angry Black woman. Dude.
Whoa.
Dude. She's like, the show's going to paint you like an angry Black woman. I'm just trying to help you because everyone's going to think that you're an angry Black woman, and then Oliver's going to leave you. What the actual flying fuck? What is happening here? It is not good at all. So, like, some deeply problematic parts of that, obviously. For one, I think she's pulling on the fact she's half Black because she even said to Erin, like, you're not Black, you don't get to say, because Erin was like, don't say that, basically. And she was like, fuck you, you're not Black, you don't get it. It's like, but you're also white presenting, so you also don't get it. And then beyond that, it's also like, you don't get the right to say that to her, partly because you're also inciting it. Like, you are a big part of why she's upset, and now you're being super condescending beyond how already condescending you were being. It's also like that is not at all what is happening actually in real life as well, because Uba's way of being angry is also not doing that for anybody. Nobody is thinking that already as it is. But then you're sort of telling her, like, you're policing her behavior. And you're also like, the way that stereotypes get challenged is not by not acting that way. Like, that's not the issue. Like, the stereotype is a problem because we assume that anyone getting angry must be an angry Black woman who's Black. Black women should not be angry. That's not the answer. Right. That is not how we challenge that stereotype. That is not it. So that is deeply problematic as well. What we should be doing is saying, like, that is such a, like, what we shouldn't be doing as white people is not saying that's inappropriate of her to be angry. That's what we should be doing to challenge the racism. I mean, yeah, the racism and the stereotype. So she's literally playing into, Bryn is the one playing into, she basically is saying she's playing, oh, that's the other thing. She says in her testimonial, she says, confessional to the camera, she said she's playing into the stereotype. She said that sentence. She said she's basically playing into the stereotype, so I'm trying to help her. What? Oh my God, it's so bad. It's actually you, ma'am. Really, really frustrating. So I have to say, like, I've been backing Bryn hard recently on this podcast based on the trauma and some of how she's been getting treated by Cy in particular. This is hard. It's hard to watch this because I do not back her on this, and it's frustrating for me to witness. I think another thing that's hard is she said to Rebecca that Rebecca needed to go up a notch. She basically said to Rebecca, get meaner, but she said to Uba, stop being so mean or stop being so mad. So that's racism.
White woman, boring, be more interesting, woman of color, tone down your personality.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I mean, you can feel both ways. You can both, like, have empathy for Bryn in certain parts of the way she's been treated and feel that in this situation, she is not in the right at all. Yeah.
It's whole object thinking, right? Like, she has good and bad. We all have good and bad. We all have good and bad behaviors. And it doesn't make people good and bad people. Like, it's just behaviors. And I think this is an area where I hope she's getting a lot of learning by watching it back and by hearing people's reactions. I think a lot of Black people are very upset. And I also think it's new for her to be seen as Black because she does look white. And so by coming out as half Black, she's now facing, a different type of critique, including from the Black community. So I have to say, I think she also figured that producers would give her a good edit because she has that producer hat. She thinks she's wearing a producer hat and helping them produce by telling people what to do on camera. And that's not how the producers obviously feel, first off. But second of all, she had such a good edit last season. So I think she thinks, like, they're just going to stay good on me. And no, that's not how it works. They honestly often do that. They'll flip back and forth and, make a villain a hero and a hero a villain. So that is a not great hope for her that I hope she'll learn from this, right? Like, don't trust the producers just because they give you a good edit one season,
It could go any way, any which way at any point.
And it will, because that's what makes it interesting. Like, she doesn't have enough of a storyline, so they gave her this one about how bad she's, like, patrolling people. She's literally patrolling and policing other people's behavior in a racist way. And she also gets after Rebecca for not drinking. She gets mad at Rebecca that she doesn't drink. It's like, no, we are so far past that attitude towards people that don't drink. If you are, like, why make it harder on people who are sober to be sober? It's just not good.
Not it.
Yeah, not it.
Oh, that's
right.
Brutal.
So bad. And definitely testosterone as well. But in this case, gave it to the doing the mostest. But tell me, dear one, what is your doing the mostest award going to?
Okay, so I am almost caught up on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So Brittany, the friend, and that Osmond guy is so upsetting. You mentioned this before, and I'm glad I had a preview, but it didn't even, like, for me, I still wasn't prepared for, like, it's so upsetting, so cringe to watch her go back to him, for him to just call her a friend. It is upsetting. And also, I don't want to like mom shame anyone, but I did feel upset when she was like, both of my kids aren't talking to me. And the first thing she did when he broke up with her was to get on all sorts of dating apps and say she goes on about 3 dates a night. And that, like, to me, I felt upset about it. And it's not her fault. I think she's deeply, as Heather has said, deeply embedded in that Mormon culture and that patriarchal culture where she needs a man to feel whole. But and I'll say it felt upsetting to be like, damn, like, this is where you're putting your energy. And not upset at her. I think more upset at the patriarchy and the way it can impact people so profoundly.
And Mormonism, frankly, because Mormonism says put your husband before your kids.
Oh, it was just hard to watch, and hard to watch her take him back. And also hard. I feel like she's easily swayed by other people's opinions, and that's a hard place to be in. I feel for her, and I feel kind of frustrated by her all at the same time. She was doing a lot, so she gets my doing the mostest award for Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Totally. And there are moments where, like, because this is the whole object thinking that you're saying right there as well. And there are moments where she'll say something that surprises me. I'm like, oh, okay, well, she actually held that boundary with him. You can tell she's doing it for the camera, though. It's like one of those things where it's like she's thinking about how she'll look or thinking about what Lisa will say or whatever it is. And it is tough to watch even in those moments. And he is disturbing. He's disturbing to watch. It's real tough, like real narcissistic and controlling.
Very controlling of her. Yeah. And not good. Yeah. Not a fan. And like, cool, you're an Osmond. Like, thank you, next. Know, like, not totally that cool anymore. Did you do whatever the fuck the Osmonds did? I don't even know what they did, but I don't think you did it. So can we move on?
You weren't on stage. You weren't part of the Jackson 5. Like, I think the Osmonds were like a Vegas show or something. I think they sang and danced, and I think they have actual songs, probably, I would imagine, but they were like a stage act, I think. But yeah, he definitely wasn't up there with them. Yeah. Get out of here, dude. Ugh. So I liked how when she was asked that. Yes, exactly. Bye-bye and next. And honestly, like, I actually am okay with Brittany staying in the show because she's a touch point for Mormonism, and she is a lot. Like, she's a lot to watch. And I do like Bronwyn more for that reason. She's a lot more to watch in those ways. But I did, at first I was sort of like, I don't care for Brittany. It's tough. It's tough to watch it because it's upsetting. But I think if she does continue to grow, that would be exciting to watch too. Like, be good to see.
Yeah. She might be receptive to feedback and validation that she doesn't have to make these choices. That might be a good, larger kind of perspective for her when she hears what, the fans think.
Yes, totally. And Andy and, the other women too. I think they're coming in a little hard on her right now. But I think over time she might be more receptive. And I also have to say, this is like the most perfect segue to our next award because we're talking about her potential growth. Are you okay with me moving? Yeah. Okay, good. So this is a perfect example also of testing 1, 2, 3, which is either like, oh no, fuck, no, it's not good. Damn it, I ruined it. Damn it. Okay, so listen, that was a good lead into 2 awards from now. In 2 awards, we will have a perfect lead in from this segue. But for now, we're gonna do testing 1, 2, 3, which is best production ad. So cinematography, direction, music, or you could also think of this as like the best or worst producer antic, because we see some producer antics opening up.
Yes. So what I'm going with is another Selling Sunset, which, is a show that I watched. I know, Dr. K, you're not as big of a fan of, or just haven't had the time to catch up on because there's so much reality TV to watch. So my production kind of antic. So there was a lot happened on this season of Selling Sunset, but one of the things was that, so Chelsea, Black woman on the show, one of two Black women on the show, Amanda is the other Black woman or biracial woman on the show. Mary, so they got a co-listing together, which always creates drama because no one wants to do a co-listing. Everyone wants their own listing with Mary. Yeah. Because they both pitched for the listing and the buyer, the seller liked both of their pitches. Mm-hmm. So they had their open house, and it was nuanced because I think what Mary was frustrated about was that Chelsea was late and did not help her on the on putting everything together, which I'm realizing is also a stereotype of Black women are always late. So
and lazy or something too, right? Like didn't do work. Yeah. That's problematic on Mary's part.
Yeah, so that feels complicated too. But so what happened was Chelsea showed up in very short shorts, very, very short shorts. And someone said something. I think one of Mary's friends said something to her, like, her shorts are awfully short, blah, blah, blah. And Mary made the choice to tell Jason and what's his brother's name? I'm forgetting. Jason's brother.
Yeah, right.
Jason and B with a B. Brandon? No, Brendan.
Brian. Jason and Brian.
Brian, not Brian. I could look it up.
You go and I'll look it up while you talk.
Thank you so much.
Jason and his
But anyway, so Mary, this showed some relational aggression, told Jason and his Jason and Brett about this. And they were like, oh shit, do we have to have a conversation with her about her dress? And then they did. And then she felt shamed.
Yeah.
Anyway, the producers were kind of shady in that they showed Chelsea in her shorts, in weird angles a lot to, I think, highlight the fact that they were very short.
Right. No one's going to be sitting down at the feet looking up. Like, gosh.
Right. And it's such a double standard because the whole shtick of that show is they wear revealing, provocative clothing. That's the whole thing. And so now to suddenly be literally policing the way a woman of color on the show dresses is a weird choice to me because they literally all do it. And so to suddenly be it's so gaslighting to suddenly be like, oh, clutch my pearls, your shorts are too short or your outfit is too revealing. I found it absurd because they literally all wear revealing clothing. And there is nothing wrong with that, by the way. Right. That is a choice that they get to make. But it felt like there was this, and there was some age stuff too that was a different thing that I could go on about with the new young hot person who dressed very conservatively. So I think they were all comparing themselves with that standard all of a sudden, which was a whole nother producer antic, I think. Mm-hmm. But I didn't like it. It's like, these are the rules that we've all been playing, and now you're changing the game and making me feel bad about it. Not cool.
Taking the rug out from under her as one of the few women of color. And I think just thinking about Christine's dresses, the mini skirts she would wear absolutely could have, if the angle was done a certain way, looked really inappropriate the same way. Mm-hmm. And we were literally just talking earlier in this very episode about how that's the point of Selling Sunset. They're basically using them as sex objects, frankly, to sell houses. Mm-hmm. So that's really wildly inappropriate. I also find Mary, I mean, that's the kind of thing that at least in our field, we're taught you talk to the person about it first directly. And if that's a problem, you might go above. But to go right above first and have men be the ones to shame her is disgusting. I really don't like it.
That's not okay.
Mm-mm. Yeah. No. Especially because Mary does have power. She can do that herself, Mm-hmm. It's already a power. Yeah.
Totally has relationships with both of those men too, that they would trust her over Chelsea or whatever.
Yeah. But so she can tell her herself. And I think also it just is different coming from a woman, especially done carefully, which I think Mary would be able to do. Just, sort of saying hey, I just was thinking, in terms of us co-listing this, it meant that I was looking at it a slightly different way this time. And just was thinking maybe we could wear a little bit longer shorts and just, whatever. And I think there's a way in which even saying I really don't want you to feel ashamed by this at all because I think you're gorgeous and I love what you wear and I think that's awesome for a night out. I just was thinking about, this specific issue or place, location. I think there's just ways to say it, ways to say that your intentions in sharing it that would help a lot. So.
Absolutely. Very frustrating. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
So, what about your producer antic?
Mine was sexist, perhaps as well, which is from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. In the most recent episode, we see a car trying to parallel park, and it's very relatable. Parallel parking is a fucking dick, it's tough. Pain in the butt. So we're watching them parallel park. It's not a terrible job at it, but it's meant to be like funny, like it's like kind of clowning, and you're wondering who's driving the whole time because they have tinted windows. Because this is a woman-dominated show, of course, we're meant to assume it's a woman because of the stereotype that women are bad drivers. We're meant to assume it's a woman, and he gets out. It's John. It's Lisa's husband who gets out. So my first thought was like, oh, like that's nice that it's not that, right? It like goes against the stereotype. And then I was like, no, this is still deeply problematic because they're playing on the stereotype to get us to be surprised that it's not a woman, which is still bringing up and reifying that stereotype in the process. And I think the other thing that's an issue is that then we're going to go on to think like, oh, John's like a woman. And that's another problem as well. Because then you're thinking like, now you're saying that women are lesser than just by making that jump. And that jump is not far-fetched because of us thinking that women are more likely to have been in that car. When frankly, they were more likely to be in that car because the show is full of women, not because women are bad drivers or bad parkers. So I say that was a producer antic and choice they made there to show that and make it look like clowny when it honestly wasn't even that bad. How many times he went back and forth. So I don't know. I just, not a fan there. Didn't do it for me. Felt sexist and bad producer antic.
And I think the show also like does a lot to show that Lisa, quote unquote, wears the pants in that relationship. So that I feel like that's a ongoing bit for them, which is like, oh, this relationship's different, but it's not done in a way that's like celebrated. It's more like there's something wrong with this.
You're
Maybe.
so right.
I don't know.
Yeah. They really show her family times as really deeply problematic. Like there were scenes where we watched like basically her kid and her husband like look to each other like, why is mom so crazy? Like that's like literally the bit that we've seen a few times. And honestly, she is like really self-referential with her kids. Like it's about her as a parent, not about them as kids. And that's problematic, but we don't need to see the husband and kid being like, oh my God, there she goes again. That's just like not it. It normalizes that for other families where that is already something that sexism in our culture is going to invite men and the male kids to do already. So no, not for me. And I'm not a huge Lisa fan either, by the way, but I don't like how they do that.
They're not always kind to her. Well, what about you did yours. Okay, that was yours. What about our test results? So this is holding castmates accountable, reading their results. Who showed the most or least growth for you?
Right? Like this was the good segue from talking about the lack of growth there from Bryn, and we were talking about sort of the producers and so forth. But I actually am going to be taking a bit of a pivot. Oh no, we were talking about Summer House. Whatever. Regardless, I'm going to take a bit of a pivot to talk about Love is Blind season 7. And I'm going to give it to Ramses. So this is a two-parter because for one, I think he behaved the most appropriately at the reunion by being humbled, quiet, owning shit, sort of. By the way, I didn't think he did a great job, but he did better than Nick and Steven and frankly, did better than Garrett. When Garrett was like, this is really immature, this conversation, I was like, fuck you. Like, that's so shaming and inappropriate. And you're just trying to get out of the fact that you were a part of this issue. But like, so even in that way, Ramses, I think, did better. So that would have been potentially a little bit of growth. But he came out in an interview lately and said that Marissa switched it up, quote unquote, at the reunion because she had apparently promised to him that they had promised to each other that they were going to back each other and defend each other. And then she went in there and did the opposite. And the fact he even came out and told people that is so inappropriate. I'm not surprised she promised him that. And it doesn't mean that there's a couple of options there. One is that it's possible that even producers told her, you need to hold him accountable because that's part of whatever. That's part of what the audience will expect is what I would imagine producers might say. I could see her mom saying that. I could see her friends saying that. I could see her thinking that to herself. Like, this is what, I'm going to be seen a certain way if I don't hold him accountable. And she would have. She did need to hold him accountable. So that wouldn't be wrong guidance. It's also possible she didn't actually feel that way when she made that promise because she didn't feel like she could say no to that. I could see him sort of saying like, so I'm assuming we're on the same page that we'll back and defend each other. And her being like, yeah, of course. Like, but not, it's hard to be like, no. Obviously they were having sex after they had broken up, or at least she referenced that a little bit, which also I actually loved that she brought that up, but in response to Hannah being shamed for that. But it sounds like even just reconnecting after the show, you're not going to be like a total bag of dicks, unless you want to be, and that's totally valid as well. But it doesn't mean she felt comfortable being a dick about it, being a jerk. So I didn't like that he was, first of all, like shaming her for not following through on a promise that was bullshit to begin with. And I also feel like why, like, it shows such a lack of learning about the fact that like you're still coming for her for not doing something that she said she would do or whatever it might be. It just felt shitty. She has defended him on social media about like condoms and whatever. So yeah, wrong move, I think, on that. And it showed a lack of growth for me.
Boo, Ramses. Just continue to stay quiet and learn maybe for a bit. And then you can speak out about whatever feels appropriate.
Sit your ass down, learn a little bit, come back to us with some of the wisdom you've learned from, watching and learning from other people. Oh, brutal. So
sit down, be humble.
Yeah, sit down, be humble. We liked the humble version very much. Oh, by the way, I was also thinking a PR person could have told her that too. If she has like a media, so there's so many people that could have been like, no, don't do that. And that's totally fucking valid. And I don't like the shaming of it. So, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about you? Whose results did you read?
Okay, so I watched Traitors season 1. I love the Traitors. I cannot wait for us to talk about it. I am so excited. I am obsessed with that show. Yeah. And the test results I'm reading are Ari's. I liked him so much better on this show. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like suspicious because I'm like, well, Peter looked better at first, but then he kind of, I think his arrogance got the best of him. And he was kind of annoying and kind of a little shit. Ari, I found really cool and kind of lovely in a lot of ways. I thought at the end with Suri when she turned the tables on him, which I loved for her because she is a fucking gamer. I thought his reaction was I don't know what else he would have done. It showed an awareness of privilege, but also a bit of fragility of like, well, I won't even, it was like both for me. Yeah. But I gotta say, like on the whole, I really liked the way he like showed up. I thought he was cool. I didn't think he was too bro-y. I thought he was just like nice in spaces. Yes. And then I'm like, oh, are some of these Bachelor guys like actually cool and okay? Or maybe they just learn, they like take in so much feedback about themselves that they grow. But I find that the Bachelor men in both seasons have done really well on the show in ways that have surprised me. Yeah. And also made me like them a lot more, frankly. So it's been very interesting. And I liked watching that with Ari. I also, there's something about his energy that's a bit femmy. I've always felt that way, but I liked it a lot more this season. It was,
he seemed less ashamed of it or like internalized shame about it. Like more open about being more relational and sort of femmy. I totally agree.
Totally. Yeah, I was a fan. So it was just nice to watch Ari on this season of the good old the Traitors, not the
good
Bachelor.
Old Traitors.
The good Traitors. Yes.
Which is the better show, I will say. My own opinion. But it's so good.
Love the Traitors. So excited for the next season. Cannot wait.
Yes, same. By the way, totally 100% agree with you. 100%. He was much better, much more comfortable in himself, but also I thought he was much more relational. And I think if he hadn't become a traitor towards the end, it would have been a different story. But as far as like how he was much more in the game once he became a traitor, which meant we saw him more. But yeah, I loved his screen time. He did great. And I agree about his reaction to Suri too. I felt like he was a little bit bitter about it, but I also knew that's what he was doing when he said good luck. Like I knew he was trying to hint. So it was interesting when he said that too. But
yeah, he was trying, but it was like he knew he was screwed, and I understand. But I think on the reunion he was like a little bit, well, like, what did you want me to do? You compared. It was a bit like, I think he was naming race without naming race in a way I found a bit annoying. It's like you made the decision you made. You could have fought if you wanted to, and that would have been fair. You chose not to, and that's okay. But to be bitter about it now, like she was playing the game, you could have too.
Yep. This is when you come back in humbled, sir.
Yeah. And I think he was a bit bitter.
Yeah.
Which he
100% was. Yeah. I agree.
But overall, his test. Yeah. Overall, test results good.
Yes. Exactly. He was great on the show itself. Yeah, I totally agree. It was nice to have him have a redemption because I liked him on his first season with the blonde woman who's like Emily. I loved him on Emily's season. I wanted him to win. I liked him a lot more than Jeff, and apparently he would have been better than Jeff too. But I liked him a lot more, so I felt bad for him. So then when he became Bachelor, I was like, oh my God, I'm excited. Like most people were like, who the fuck is this guy? But I was like, I loved him on his season. I was so excited. Didn't like his season. Tall. Hated how he treated Becca. So this was a great little redemption arc here.
Yeah.
Good for him. But now we have our super fun award called Testosterone. This is where we say somebody, due to their testosterone or, just patriarchal part of themselves, has a most patriarchal, white supremacist, misogynist, and or heterosexist moment. This could be something we could say about Trump. He's just like a permanent testosterone guy. So who got your testosterone boned award this week?
I have a few. One is Lisa Barlow potentially selling a story about Whitney's business. Like that is just so not supporting other women and women in business. And it just, I think it might be true. I don't know for sure, but it just, it feels like
she
it might
be
defensive
right away. Yeah.
Yeah. I just was like, damn, like, why would you do that? I think because she was mad about something Whitney said on a podcast. And I can see her being that spiteful, to be honest. And I was really bummed because I thought that they had come a long way. And I think Lisa Barlow can be a bit of a mean girl. And I don't like that impulse in her. There are parts of Lisa Barlow that I like. I find I don't think I'd like to be around her ever. I do think she has a lot of narcissistic traits. I do think she cares a lot about being a good mother. And I think that is admirable. But this really bummed me out, to be honest with you. Like, I was like, I think you might have done that, and that sucks.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think she did do it. She was so mad about what Whitney said and never really got an answer until they were on screen. And then she still was just sort of mad at her about it. She wasn't trying to repair. So it felt very much like she had to do something to feel okay about it earlier on than when they came on camera again for the season. And I would also say, like, even in her desire to be a good parent, it does still feel to me like it's about how she looks, which sucks. But I do like that she does care. But then she, even with the kids, like she's talking about herself with the kids, it's tough. But yeah.
Or their image or whatever.
Right. She is funny, by the way. The part of me that likes her, the part of her I like is that she can be funny. Yeah. I would be around that.
Can be funny.
Small doses. Yeah.
And I don't like that. It's like sometimes her mean girlness is funny, but sometimes just like when someone loves themselves that much, it's kind of like nice to see. It's like, oh, you have so much self-love when that's a really hard thing to have. I can respect that for you. And it is kind of funny sometimes. Like she is a diva and that is fun and funny to watch.
Yeah. And she has good humor with John. I think they're funny together. Cute.
Yeah. He's very sweet to her. So, and then my honorable mention goes to Mary with the whole Chelsea thing and her shorts. I didn't like it. I thought it was sexist. I was not a fan.
No, ma'am. Not good.
Yeah.
Is that it? Do you have a third one?
No, I did, but I don't think it really actually counts. So it's just Kate to Rachel on the Traitors. She was kind of a mean girl to her, but
yes.
But I don't know if it's really testosterone. She just wasn't very nice, and I felt bad for
I'm with
Rachel.
testosterone. It did feel sexist, and she came after her for her outfits and stuff, was making fun of how she looked, and I felt like Rachel actually did a great job standing up for herself, but like I still felt bad for her. It felt very bully-y, and it based on like feminine things, like how she looks and such, and I didn't like that. Yeah. I think Rachel is someone who feels confident regardless, and I think that's a cool thing, and she actually is somewhat self-aware, so she doesn't come off that way, but she can say things in the testimonials that she's clearly aware of stuff. So I like Rachel. Okay, good. I like that example. Thank you for sharing it, even if it feels a little bit adjacent. I liked it.
Yeah. What about you?
Mine is like deeply, deeply problematic is every single one of the men on the reunion of Love is Blind 7. Just like some of the most major problems ever. And we already covered the reunion. So I'll just do the list of them, and please do go back and listen to our recounting and our recap of it to hear the context. But the Hannah and Nick of it all, the way that Nick wanted to be the hero and come back and be like, she's getting way too much hate, which implies she should get some hate, which I don't agree with. In fact, she had to come out there on this and fall on the sword, and he tried to look great and actually just denied everything that was said about him. The fact that Nick Lachey made it worse about Hannah. And made it worse about, I felt Vanessa made it worse about Hannah, and I felt that Nick made it worse about Marissa by saying, don't ever date someone who thinks you're too much. That's victim blaming. With Hannah, it's the idea that she's seen as too much against Nick's kindness to her. It's like people were sort of saying she should feel lucky he even wanted her given how she looks. Like that was sort of the implication of what was coming out of that, which I really fucking hated that. And yeah, she was mean to him, but honestly, his flirtiness with Katie was fucking problematic. And that kind of that was taken out of it. Like that was never even brought up in the reunion. It was brought up, but it wasn't brought up that that was problematic. And instead, Hannah had to apologize to Katie, even though they clearly moved past it and are friends again. Like after the show, they've stayed friends. They even said that they were, but she was like, but I just really wasn't expecting that. Dude, I wasn't expecting you to like clearly flirt with him. And he said like, oh, by the way, your Instagram is dope. Like, no, none of that was okay, you know? So I didn't like that. I felt like also the Garrett with this is such an immature conversation also felt victim blaming. He's saying like, you're being childish to care about this. No, they're caring that she's getting total hate, like death threats. That's not childish to confront and to try to correct. That's wild to me. Just because you're trying not to get confronted. Hated that. Monica getting flack for being too much by people in general. That's wild to me. Vanessa victim blaming her by saying that she should have known Steven cheating was a red flag. Tim, dude. Y'all want men to take you seriously and then you treat me like that? What the fuck is that sentence? Take that somewhere else, dude. Basically, you're saying that women shouldn't be taken seriously, that they have to like earn it and then have to ask for it. And then you're also saying that you can deny us being treated seriously if we belittle you. When men literally belittle women all the fucking time. Not only that, you did it with that comment. That comment was belittling of women. You are actually fucking joking me. So I personally actually saw very little issue with the women this season. I didn't think, I do agree Hannah was mean and there were some hurtful things she said that I was like, oh, that's not really appropriate. But she's, like she said, she knew just from living it, not even from watching it back, that there were things she needed to work on. And I think the fact that she was open to growth makes it remarkably different than any of the men who seemed to not get what they did. Even Steven. Absolutely. Even the way Steven talked about it, I was like, no, this is for image control. Not good. No.
Shitty. Shitty AF. Yeah, none of them really talked about their growth journeys or what they were doing. And yet she had to say a whole lot about that. She had to freaking kiss the ring of pretty much everyone, fall on the sword, as you said. Like it's just such different. It's like apples and oranges. Like women are held to such a higher standard than men. And they were all egregious in so many different ways.
Exactly. And very little held accountable, frankly, in some ways. Like I feel like they tried to, but ultimately there wasn't really enough of that. The jokes about wrap it up, Ramses took up so much fucking time for no reason because that was terrible. We could stop doing that, please, and actually just like talk seriously about it. And I also felt like this has always happened with these reunions where the women are on defense or even offense, but that like they have to fight for their image, where the men can just stay quiet if they want to, and it still looks just as good. I mean, that's fucked.
Yep. They don't have to say anything at all. Ugh. Well, to counteract all of that testosterone nonsense, what was your Bechdel test moment? What was the most feminist, anti-racist, gay, etc. moment of the week?
So I'm going to give that also for the Love is Blind reunion to Marissa when when she said, so like Nick, when he said, then why did Hannah invite me to hang out weeks later? Like, first of all, what the fuck does that mean? You were still an asshole to her. So A, she might have been trying to win your affection because you set it up as something you can withdraw and be mean to her with it. She obviously felt like she said, I wanted to make sure I wasn't just like joking about or whatever. I wanted to make sure it made sense that I wanted to fuck him essentially. So like whatever her reasoning, it doesn't matter. But that also is not something to shame her about. It doesn't make it different that she also thought you were mean to her. That doesn't mean anything about that. So when Marissa jumped right in there and she was like, what do you mean? She's like, I did that with this guy over here. Like that just happens. People do that. I loved it that she was like, this is a relatable thing. Don't make it like that. And just like jumped right in there and made it even relatable to her, not just to say like women do that or something. So I thought that was a good jump in. I have heard that she and Hannah are not really friends anymore, but I still did very much like how she jumped in on that point.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah, I thought she was great with Hannah on that episode, on that reunion. And women do that sometimes because guess what? We're all under the patriarchy and all taught that we should seek men's approval. So
it's not. We don't like men being mad at us. We don't like anyone on the planet being mad at us, but certainly not someone in power. So it makes sense that we try to win people back, even if they've really deeply hurt us.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that one.
How about you?
Mine is Chriselle and Nicole. So Nicole last season in the reunion was called out for liking some homophobic comments. She said she liked these comments. She and Chriselle had a lot of beef last season because they were supporting her and not because they were homophobic. But it's that whole impact versus intent thing. And Nicole continued to be on the defensive and did what a lot of people do, which is they try to defend their intent versus their impact. And I'll give Jason credit. He was like, it actually doesn't matter. Like this, she got defensive. She had to step away from the conversation. Jason was like, this is not working. This was not a productive apology. Like, you need to tell her genuinely that you're sorry, because you actually haven't. You think you have, but you haven't. You always want to explain away what you did. And she finally did it. And Chriselle forgave her. Like, it's really that simple sometimes. People want to see that you're remorseful and that you actually care. And she finally showed that, and they moved the fuck on. It was incredible. I mean, not that incredible. I just thought it was a nice moment where it was like, this is an apology. Like, she was doing the thing and doing it. And Chriselle was just like not having it. And then she changed tunes, seemed genuinely sorry. And they moved the fuck on. So I think it's a good lesson for people who just want so badly for people to understand their intent, that actually it's like not about you as the person who doesn't hold the marginalized identities, and to do some perspective taking and how that can actually allow you both to move on.
Exactly. Because the problem at stake here is implicit bias. So your intent means absolutely nothing, because it's about subconscious intent. And so you can say whatever the fuck you want. It's never going to change how people think you're involved with it. And I also would say, you're right, it's not incredible to have a good basic repair, but it's incredible that they did that on that show and that they modeled that, because that's exactly the group we don't usually see that with. So I totally agree. It's incredible that was able to happen on that show. I will say, like, the fact a man had to step in and be like, here's how it kind of sucks, but at least that also shows that he's aware of what good repair looks like too. That is good modeling for other men, perhaps. So yeah, a both and there. And I love it.
That he was using his privilege for good in that moment to like try to help the situation, which I think he did, to be fair. Even if it's paternalistic and annoying, I think she wouldn't have probably heard it from any of the women, unfortunately, because I think that's where she's at. But I was glad for both of them that they could move on, and that it just, I think it highlighted that impact versus intent thing very well, which was cool.
Yes, that's a really good modeling there. And yeah, that's exactly the issues with her, not Jason, because she needed to hear it from a man to do it, is more so than Jason had to step in, because it is good he stepped in. Someone had to, fucking goddamn. But it just means that, like, it's a bummer that needed to happen. It needed to come from a man for it to work. But I love that you're right, that it's not just a good repair modeling, but you're so right. So the intent versus impact piece is so clear in it. That's so good. Good. I love it. And from a white man too. That's great. Fabulous. So this next one, by the way, I have a repair conversation coming up in this next one too. So that's awesome. This next one is, they were the worst test of friends. They were the best test of friends, which is the worst or best relationship or friendship moments. What do you got?
Okay, so I'm going back to the traders, and I'm talking about Sari with Andy and Quentin. And I don't feel that, I think it's both the best and the worst, because I think they got in crosshairs. I think Andy and Quentin felt sad that Sari kind of used the relationships that they formed to instill trust and instill, I think they had maybe like a person of color alliance kind of thing to the end. And so it was kind of a, worstest of friends moment. At the same token, I think Sari is a game player, and she played the game, and I think she genuinely cared about them. I also saw moments with other people of color over the season when she kind of stepped in when people were not getting portrayed the way she thought they should, or like she would, like, I think she genuinely cared about them and probably helped them get to the end. But yeah, she's going to play the game because she's a really amazing game player. So I don't think it's the worstest or the bestest. I understand their feelings. I understand her feelings. She mentioned she has a lot of people who depend on her, and she's been playing these games for a long fucking time, and she's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. She finally won, and I respect it. I understand where everyone's coming from. It's complicated. But I think you've mentioned this, that relationships are kind of the way of the future for these reality TV games. And I think it's interesting to see that play out.
Exactly. That like people who are gamers first, who are gamers back in the old era and continue to be gamers, know that you have to be cutthroat. You have to be ruthless. There's so many times that we could watch shows and think like, oh my God, he'll never evict her because they're in a relationship. And then he does and everyone's shocked. It's like, don't be shocked because that's how gamers do it. They have to do that. They have to be cutthroat or they won't win. We've also seen people privilege relationships and then lose because they privilege the relationship and they get so much flack for that. People are like, why didn't you cut her? Like you were just like whipped or, like terrible kind of like stereotypical stuff that's really hurtful. And then, so then people have learned over time, don't do that. Don't put relationships first. So then when this new wave of people who were first on reality TV shows that were not competition based, they do put relationships first. When they come on here and they see that, they get super hurt. It's just different. It's a clash of cultures. And so the future will have both, I think. The future will have the relationships interwoven a little bit more, like a little bit more of that attention to that, because that's part of strategy, is also taking care of your relationships. And I think that Suri did the best she could to do both. I actually think she did well at both. I think she really did also genuinely care and try to privilege relationships, like you said, by getting them there, getting them to the end even. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
What's she supposed to do? Tell them she's a traitor? She can't do that. You know what I mean? Like literally, it's in the rules.
Right, exactly. And she wanted to win, which was fair enough.
Yeah, that's her job.
Well, what about you? What was your moment? I'm excited to hear.
Well, thank you so much. I wanted to give just a quick little nod as an, honorable mention to the Love is Blind 7 reunion for the women sort of taking up for each other. Even it was interesting seeing even like crossing the aisle because you can tell that these two were friends and these three were friends. They were sort of split, the women, when they were talking about the trip they went on. Not all the women went on that trip, even though they acted like they did, so it was good to see, like, for example, Monica jump in for Hannah or whatever, I thought that was nice. And so I thought they still kind of stood up for each other, which I liked that, even though the men were just chilling. So they didn't have to do that. So I really appreciated that. But I'm going to give the worstest of Friends award to Bronwyn and Heather on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I actually really like Bronwyn in a lot of ways, but I think how she handled this conversation with Heather was tough. It was not like ideal. I also felt like Heather should, like Bronwyn's right, that Heather should take responsibility for her part in their dynamic. But I think Heather was also right that she was being asked to like sing for her dinner, like sing for the trip, for the invite on the trip. Basically, Bronwyn's bringing everyone on this really expensive trip and invited Heather over to say, I don't know if I should bring you or not because we're not good friends yet. And so, but basically she's saying like, tell me we're good and then I'll bring you. And that's true. That's not cool. Or apologize and I'll bring you. So I think also Bronwyn kept saying like, I'll apologize for that. I will apologize for that. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, she never did the I'm sorry. So that's a bad repair item. I think asking Heather to like apologize in order to be invited is like weird extortion or something. I don't know. Not the move.
You're right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Not the move. She also said, like, if I need to say it was messy to move on, I'll say that. That's not anything that's ever going to work for repair. No one wants you to say it just to be able to move on. I think that's actually a huge issue people have too. They're like, I just want to be done with this. So yeah, of course, I'm sorry. It's like, then that's not, I'm sorry. That's not, I'm sorry. We're all done here because that's not it. So I think after Heather left, the way that Bronwyn was crying and said that taps into my most serious fear that the best version of myself is not good enough for someone. I obviously was like very sad, very empathy pulling, like I felt really just like, ugh. But I also felt both of them could have done better. And I still think I was closer to thinking Bronwyn was where I would want to be if I was going to choose. I still think Heather was like very defensive, didn't want to hear that she had anything to do with it. Even the way she talked about it after the fact and directly to camera, she like clearly didn't recognize what she had put into the dynamic either, even after Bronwyn told her. So even though I think Heather was fair not to apologize in that context, I also think she still didn't do any sort of self-learning around it either. So that was a bummer. Yeah, absolutely. I'm saying they're worstest of friends for sure.
Yeah, they are missing each other in all ways. And I agree. I think you said this in a past episode. Heather is really determined not to like Bronwyn. Yeah.
Won't do it. I think Bronwyn's getting a lot of play. I think also it's fair. What she said about Whitney did seem really hurtful in the car. It's interesting that she was able to say it to Whitney in a way that Whitney could hear so that it didn't turn out to matter that it was behind her back, but it did feel hurtful. Yeah. I had thought during that scene,
it was shady.
I was like, she doesn't, during that scene, I was like, she doesn't get it. Like, and honestly, I thought it was Lisa's fault that Lisa didn't jump in and be like, Bronwyn, like, slow your roll, because Heather in the back is obviously going to take that to heart more seriously. So Lisa let Bronwyn like seal her, coffin, if you will, or something, put the nail in her coffin about how she was talking about Whitney in front of Heather. And I think that's more on Lisa as someone who knew those dynamics than it was on Bronwyn. So yeah, I don't know. Tough stuff. So,
Absolutely.
you know.
Well said. That's a great one.
Thank you so
But what
much.
about your testimonial? So this is the best confessional or straight to camera moment. This is the award I always struggle to remember to do. But actually what you just said made me remember a good one. So I'm excited to share it.
Good.
But
Good. I love
yes,
that. I love that.
What is yours?
So mine is going to be from Real Housewives of New York. And I would say for me, it was when Uba, and so I had just talked about the Uba Bryn dynamic. There's a new woman on this season named Raquel, whose wife is a neuropsychologist, as we brought up, which we love, or a fiance, soon to be wife. So Raquel is incredible. Like, what a great new cast member. I'm obsessed with her. So she has a conversation. We see her have a conversation with Uba where Uba's explaining to Raquel the background of the issue between Uba and Bryn and explains about how condescending she was and says the thing, by the way, Raquel's also a woman of color, says the thing about how Bryn had said to her, you're going to be seen as an angry Black woman. And so we see Raquel react to that and she's like, wow, that's extremely manipulative. She says to us in the confessional, that was extremely manipulative. Like, Bryn's behavior is not okay, especially because Bryn is inciting that behavior from Uba. So she just names the facts right up front, like the things that we've all been feeling since the fight happened. She's able to just like nail it right on the head about what's problematic about it. But then also,
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so matter of fact and perfect. And then we also see her say to Uba, like, so basically you don't want to hear it from her when you guys are trying to repair it, you just don't want to hear from her at all. She's like, no, I shouldn't have to care. I'm never going to deal with her again. And I liked that then Raquel was able to say to us, well, that's also not good. Like, you're leaving it hanging in the air and it's just going to bug you. Like, she didn't make it about like, make Bryn feel better, make the, people watching the show feel better. It's not about that. It's about you, Uba, feeling like it's unresolved and that will be in the air after that. And I just was like, nailing it, exactly the problem. It's not really about Bryn, it's about in the repair, it's about Uba and Uba feeling more solid and being in the group if she has, put that to bed with Bryn. So I just loved it. I thought she did such a great job being like Uba centered, but also a little bit impartial in the way that the ending was, like, not impartial so much as like looking at whole object thinking about it, and very resolved, when we had seen her really unresolved in her own trauma in a very big way. I mean, I think she has a lot of emotions. That was another thing I wanted to be able to bring up sometime, but I'll bring it up another time because I do want to come back to that, because her trauma thing was really triggering it was like traumatic and intense and very triggering for her. But I think that also can be, it doesn't mean she's unresolved in her trauma necessarily, but that could be an element of it. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time. Let's have a whole lot to say about that. So
what? I can't wait to hear it.
I know, right? We have things to talk about. We love it. We love talking about mental health on this podcast. So there's a lot on these housewives shows, man, which I appreciate about them. So
I do too. It's so nuanced.
Truly. Tell us about your testimonial.
Yeah, what you brought up for me, which I thought was funny and also shady in multiple ways. So Heather, in her testimonial, when she was at Bronwyn's house, she was like, this reminds me of Mary Cosby's house, which I think they do have very similar taste. But then she was like, except, and I don't remember the exact quote, but there's dog poop all over the floor. Like, I have to watch where I step because there's so much dog poop, which was shady. That was very shady, friends. Bronwyn, I think, has like 8 dogs, and maybe, they have a lot of money, could hire someone to clean up the poop because that's not great. But that was shady AF. And you talking about their dynamic reminded me of it. Was shady towards Mary and it was shady towards Bronwyn. So it was multiple shadies.
And it could have been from that day, that poop. It's like you could have someone come clean up the poop once a day even, and there's still going to be poop for part of the day. And we only saw a couple of piles personally, and they could have not even been the ones from that day because we don't know what the B-roll is from. And then I would also say that she later also was like, I don't want to take your shitty apology in your shitty house anyway, or whatever. Like, she also did that later, called it a shitty house because of the poop in it. Rude.
Damn. Heather going for it in lots of ways. Yeah. But I think she accomplished her aims with those shady testimonials.
Yeah, definitely. She was coming down hard. She was not having any of it. But it did, like, again, sort of show her lack of like sort of openness to, just like Raquel was talking about, to resolving this even for her own sake. And I think that's not ideal.
No, indeed. Well, this was so much fun.
Really. What a lovely escape with you. We're on a little vacation towards reality television together.
Exactly. So tell me about our social medias and where people can find us.
Love that. So our social medias, where also you will see the announcement of our new exciting information that's coming. Something exciting is coming in a few weeks, and you'll see it on social media as well. We'll also talk about it on the podcast, of course. And our social medias look like at realiTest Pod on YouTube and also on Facebook, and that's our page name. On TikTok, you'll find it at Dr.s.realiTV, which is realitv. And then on our Instagrams, you'll see we have both of us on there separately, but of course, nodding to each other regularly. So you'll find us together if you find one of us as well, which is at Dr. K Pods and at Dr. Ray Pods. So come and check us out. We love to see you on social media. We do lots of fun things. We do memes, we do videos. We are just regularly posting, so come hang out. We have a few, for example, videos right now about Love is Blind 7 reunion. For example, Tim's comment, my God, my God. I put it on there and that got a lot of views because that is how problematic that was. That was deeply problematic. So come see it if you're wondering for context what that looks like and other things, of course. So yeah, tell us more also about what people can do with our podcast, Dear Dr. Ray.
If you feel so inclined, or if you like what we're doing, please download us. It helps us a lot to find new subscribers. Tell your friends if you like the show. It will help and allow us to keep doing this thing that we love doing so much. So we're grateful for your downloads, likes, subscribes, all the things.
Yes, download, like, and subscribe. Rate, review, subscribe, download, like, subscribe. Do all of the good things. We also, just as a quick announcement, have made the executive decision to move towards one episode a week for the near future. So, feel free to give feedback or tell us what would be useful, but we're going to probably alternate between recap episodes and awards episodes. So every other week you'll have award episodes again, and alternating with some recaps. So we might switch it up what we're recapping and sort of bring you up to date on several episodes at a time of a given show. So who knows? Oh yeah, no, wait, we do know. Next week, we're going to do Golden Bachelorette and catch you up through the finale. And then that'll get us through. That'll be the last of that season. So check us out next week if you like Bachelor. If not, we'll see you in 2 weeks. But as always, we so appreciate and love you all. Take care of yourselves and your hearts. We're thinking of you and wishing the best. And we'll see you next session.
Bye.
Bye.